All right, we are live. Okay, hi everybody. It is Kristen with Papapietro Perry Winery. I'm here with Ben. Ben,
hi everyone.
Welcome back. We haven't seen you in a week or so, and you looking mighty tan. What are you doing?
On vacation.
You're in your backyard?
Yeah, but I didn't have far to travel this time.
Yeah, you can't really. Yeah, no, you didn't have to do any luggage, any of that. Security's been a breeze, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Well, we are today.
I usually pack 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time, so that saved me all the packing that I usually do.
2 or 3 weeks? You're being
yeah, because it goes in and out. I put stuff in and then take it out, but you know.
I heard you. I know you pack like months ahead of time, and you have amazing shoes. You'll have to bring those on one time that you pack that I think are hilarious. I love them. Anyways, we are drinking. More importantly, it is our 2018 Mukaida Vineyard. I'm going to show my camera. Mukaida Vineyard Pinot Noir. And so, what is Mukaida? You say? How do you say Mukaida? It is Mukaida, Mukaida, and that is Randy's wife's maiden name. We named this after Tom Mukaida, but Ben, tell me a little bit about the Mukaida Vineyard and who is Tom?
Well, Tom was a Japanese apple grower that we didn't meet when we met Randy Peters in 1998. Randy was the first new vineyard we had. We had a couple of vineyards that we had when we were home winemakers, but the quality wasn't quite what we were looking for. So we met Randy, and we've talked about our meeting with Randy and how that all developed and the envelopes and all that. But what we didn't know was that the property actually belonged to Tom Mukaida. It was Tom's apple orchard that Randy started taking little bits of it and converting it in the early 80s to first to Chardonnay, and then started adding some Pinot with the help of Gallo, because the apples weren't doing so good, because Washington State was really moving in on our apple business. So Tom agreed to let Randy take some parcel of the property and convert it to first to Chardonnay, then Pinot Noir. So when we in our rookie stage didn't ask actually whose vineyard it was. We just took it for granted that it was Randy, because we were dealing with Randy Peters. So of course, our first release in '99 was Peters Vineyard, and our first vineyard designate was 2001, I believe, was our first vineyard designate. But then by then we discovered that the property actually belonged to Tom Mukaida. So
was there a name of the property?
No,
there wasn't a name. So by naming it Peters Vineyard, you, poor Tom, by the way, totally blew him out. Yolanda is saying they just got your Mukaida last week. You're right. We just released it. And Yolanda, this is the only way I get to actually drink the Mukaida. So thank you to everybody out there for letting me drink the Mukaida. Everybody, it's a wine club allocation special. It is either in transit or just been delivered. We opened ours a little early because we can.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
And what else are we going to do right now? So we may as well drink the Mukaida. So this was originally the apple orchard. So then in 2004, if I am correct, right, when you got the grapes in from the Peters Vineyard, we were at a custom crush. We were not in the property. We are now.
So actually, it was we were a shared facility, and we used shared equipment there. So we paid rent and were able to use the equipment. Thing was, we were at a tiny little winery that they stuck on the side, and there was 2 bigger wineries, so they had first grab at the equipment. Happened to be the day we weren't supposed to be getting any fruit, so I went home because I had spent like a month up there without seeing my wife. So I went home, and Randy made a surprise visit of a few tons of 777 clone, which Dave and Tyson, they weren't able to use the equipment that was there because the bigger winery had a big shipment. So a friend of ours had a little portable unit that they could hand sort, and so they hand sorted the 777, and put it in bins. And then when I got back, we started the fermentation after our 3-day cold soak. And then when we finally pressed and barreled it down, we ended up with, I think, 10 or 12 barrels of 777. And so it was funny. I just, on a fluke, wrote Tom's on the barrels. So we kept them separate than the other ones because it was the only ones. The place that we were at had a Healdsburg hopper where you just throw all the fruit into it, and then a crusher destemmer that just made mush. And then we had this pump. It was a mush pump. I mean, they call it a juice pump, but the stuff that came out of the press was like mush. So
I don't think these are the technical names of the.
Yeah, no. So we had the mush pump and filled it up, and there was no whole berries like we get today. But doing it the way they did it, it was all whole berries. So I wanted to keep that separate because it was really unique of all the other wines that we were making at that time. So those 10 barrels we kept isolated and called them Tom's.
So because we were at Windsor Oak, if I'm correct, everything was done by machine because you had the machines there and you were. And so when this came in, this was the first thing you did by hand.
Correct.
And it's separate. Where a lot of winemakers I've talked to do appreciate a difference between machine cultivated grapes, I guess, versus the hand picking, hand sorting, hands on it all. Well, it turned out pretty good. So 2004 was our very first vintage.
That's right. Well, that now is how we do all of our fruit. We hand sort and separate it before. So that was what we couldn't do at Windsor Oaks. Everything was just thrown in a hopper. So leaves, stems, snails, snakes, whatever, all went in. I mean, it is what it is. And we did very well there. Well, we got known, I think in 2004, we had 7 wines, and all 7 wines got between 91 and 94 points that year. 95 points, I think. It's
got 95.
95 points, I think.
Yeah. Well, since I'm already like a few minutes in and I haven't actually talked about the wine, I've cheated and had a couple sips. So like we're saying, the 2018 is brand new. There were no 750s at the winery, so I grabbed a Magnum.
Oh, boy.
Okay. I'm kidding. That's actually for Heather Wise. If you're on, I got to drop that off
good.
For you. I grabbed a 750. So here's mine. I know Ben has his 2018. You'll notice it does say Mukaida Vineyard, which Ben just let us know there is no such thing as a Mukaida Vineyard.
Actually, when we decided to have that done, we asked them to put Mukaida block on the bottle because we wanted to ice just to make sure that it wasn't considered the vineyard. We wanted to make it a specific block, with 1777 block. Well, the printer put on their Mukaida Vineyard, and that's the rest of the story. Now it's known as Mukaida Vineyard, which it really properly should be called.
It could. Well, maybe Randy will change it.
No, now it's Peters Vineyard.
Oh, yeah, he's not doing that anymore. That's true. All right, well, let's talk about the 18. So one of the best things, again, Ben, with your wines is they are consistent year after year after year. And so if you are out there and you're enjoying wine with us tonight, if you have a different version, vintage, oh my God.
There's not many virgins around these days.
No, they should be drinking if they are. Yeah, they've been sacrificed for the wine. Okay, so different vintage of the Mukaida and or Peters, because this is kind of the best, your favorite barrels of the Peters Vineyard.
Yeah.
So 2018, brand new. Tell me about it.
Well, again, this one here is a little bit different. You know, the base for our wine originally was all 7.7, but over the years we've kind of gone with 7.77 and Pommard as the two parts of that vineyard that go into our Mukaida. Well, this year and last, the 115 really was stunningly beautiful, and so we used the 115 and the 777, and we didn't use any Pommard in this one at all. So whereas it's a little bit different in the sense that the makeup is different. The actual quality of it is right there. It's a stunningly beautiful wine. It just
18. It's young.
And it starts out with a brooding nose. You get that brooding nose, and then it's mostly dark blue fruits with a little bit of warm barrel toast interwoven, and then the vibrant cherry. Then you get lots of cherry. The copper top battery, that keeps on going. Well, that's how the cherry in the Peters Vineyard. Yes,
right there. Good job.
Yeah. So it has a vibrant cherry and raspberry notes with polished velvety quality on the palate. It just is so soft and smooth across it with really bright acidity. Again, it has really bright acidity, and I don't know, this one here to me is a little bit brighter acidity than usual. I think the 115 really adds to that. So, yeah, because you usually get the velvetiness from the Pommard, and this time the bright acidity in this wine really pops out at you.
So weird question, because Wendy Nunes is on, so now I'm kind of thinking to myself, because you make this your favorite barrels of the Peters you put into this. Have you ever looked at like the Nunes Vineyard and said, these two barrels are amazing, I wonder what they'd be like together? And ever thought to do a compilation of any of the other single vineyards?
No, well, you have to go to the genesis of how we ended up with Mukaida in the first place. It was something uniquely different than what we had been doing since 1998. Right. So this is 2004, so we've got like 6 vintages working on. It was extremely different, and it was unique to the location we were at in that processing. So today the processing is all pretty much exactly the same. Now we do all hand sorting, like I mentioned. So what we're really looking for in this one it was a fluke, and because it did so well and it was so well received, we decided to keep it in part of our program. But generally speaking, what we attempt to do with our vineyard designates are make the very best vineyard designates. So we try. And so with the Mukaida, it's a little bit different because we take the 10 best barrels off of but we get quite a bit of fruit from Randy. So, and he's our longest relationship of vineyards that we've had. So it's to be expected we get a lot of fruit from him. So my target is to make the very, very best vineyard designate from each one of our vineyards that we make vineyard designates with. And the parts that we don't use, because we don't use every single part of each vineyard for that vineyard designate, there's 2 choices here. What we do with it is, one, if it's really good, but we don't need it in the vineyard designate, we'll put it in to the Russian River. And if it doesn't meet that mark, then we will sell it on a bulk market. We won't use it. But that happens rarely because our growers that we work with are very conscientious. So that's very, very few times, although we have sold off parts of our product to the bulk market when it didn't meet up to what our standard is.
Now your wines are consistent year to year. They're amazing. Well done. You do a great job.
How we can tell that it's consistent is because the scores every year, like, get 1 point one way or the other, 91 points or 93 points, 92 points, 91. But they're always in the 90s. We have, what did we say, something like 70, 90 point plus wines in 20 years.
That's amazing. That's great.
Amazing. And we just, with 3 of our wines, we had 3 double goals, and then one of our wines got best of class and best of show for our Pommard 2016. Was it 16? Yep. Yeah, 16, with the American Fine Wine competition, which is a very big competition on the East Coast. So we're very proud. But that consistency is the scores show that consistency.
It does. I will be honest and let everybody know that we don't actually send out the Mukaida every vintage for scores. And the main reason is there isn't any Mukaida to send out for scores. So why are we going to give Wine Spectator and such a couple of the bottles when you guys want it instead? So I don't believe, I'm trying to think the last year we sent Mukaida out for scores. And as the wine club manager, I like to hoard it all for our wine club members. So I prefer everybody else to be out there drinking it. But yeah, I don't think we're going to be sending out the 18. I don't think we sent out 17 or 16. We only make, like Ben was saying, 8 to 10 barrels. It's about 25 cases per barrel. So that's 2 to 230 cases. 2018, we made 231 cases. So it's a definitely small production.
We normally make it.
Yeah, well, you're right, exactly. Yeah, it's a super small production, and we started doing it to where it only went to wine club members, and we did an allocation basis where if you want 3, 6, or 12 bottles, you let me know. That's what you get every year. Everyone just got their notification. They get their bottles. It comes in the door. It goes out the door, and easy as can be. But I want to go to the blending part of the Mukaida, because the Mukaida is the very first wine we blend every year. And just as a quick little picture, because I like the pictures, we have a picture of you and the guys blending this year. And I think this was March-ish, which you'll see why I know that in a second. This is March, and if I'm correct, Mukaida may have been what you were blending here. It's the first thing. So that's Tyson over there on the left with the big jacket. Dave's in the middle. He's our assistant winemaker. And of course, Ben looks like the hood over there with his, he's doing great social distancing. He's got his mask on. Don't know how you're tasting the wine. Looks a little chilly out, but I think that was, you can't really quite tell, but you can see all these little plastic containers of all the wines. And right in the middle in front of Dave is a big measuring beaker as well. So that's blending 101 right there, guys. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been blending with these guys. These are my backup team for the last, well, going on 18 years that we've worked together. So what we do is we look at the prior year to where we ended up with our final. And we use that as the starting point for each blend. So we start there, and then we have the 3 different clones from Peters Vineyard, and we start at that point, and then we move the different percentages up and down, make different blends, lots of different blends, and then we taste and taste and taste until we all 3 of us are on the same page about what we agree is the best blend of that of those 3 wines. And in this case, one of them didn't make the cut, so which was unusual, but possible.
So correlating this to chef's terms, you go to your recipe book and you pull out the 2017 Mukaida recipe and you look at that and go, this is what I did, yada, yada. You go sit down at the table with that, maybe kind of start there. Then you go, well, yeah, but let me try this, let me try that. And you kind of rewrite the recipe for 2018 based on that vintage.
That's correct. Yeah. And so the idea is we don't want to recreate the wheel every year. So we know, we have a long history now. And so we can go back and look. Best to look at the highest scored ones we get. So we know what those numbers are, and we go to develop from there. So we can go north and south with the different amounts until
you're tasting the barrels throughout as well, throughout the fermentation process, when they're in the barrel and they're kind of doing their thing. I always compare barrels to children. My thought is this barrel of wine is progressing delicious, going to be a doctor, lawyer. This one down here, maybe not doing so well, may not graduate high school. And so you pull out all those great barrels. You already know where they're heading. Then you can pop them in the recipe. Because you're starting with that previous recipe, because you're starting with the history of what we do, you are that leads to the consistency of your winemaking style and the Pinots that you produce and pull out. So if you have last year's Mukaida and you loved it, chances are you're really going to love this year again.
Well, that's the important thing about consistency. I think as a consumer, for all the years I was a consumer, not a winemaker, you would find a wine that you really loved and go back and the next year and hopefully it would be the same. And sometimes it was like they fired the winemaker and pushed the wine off a cliff or something. It was terrible. I mean, what the hell happened? So when I started my project, my idea was to replicate and be consistent. And so that's one big effort that we've worked on, is to be very consistent from year to year. So if you like Nunes Vineyard, and many do because it's got the second highest score ever in the North Coast Wine Challenge. I think it was 97 points. So we want it to be consistent. So if people are following and supporting the Nunes wine, we want them to appreciate the following year. I mean, without shocking them,
Ron's asking a question. I try to set my Mukaida for at least a year. Is that a good idea? Not.
Absolutely. I mean, we love to drink it the minute you got it, financially speaking, but realistically speaking, these wines will hold for a great while. I mean, we say 3 to 5 is perfect, but they'll go 7, 8, 9 years. And we've been drinking wines 10, 15 years old and still very vibrant. I don't recommend that because you can be disappointed if you hold it too long. It could be a little cork problem or your temperature or something like that. So rule of thumb is 3 to 5. And then if you're risky and you got a lot of bottles, keep a couple around for a while.
And my rule of thumb is 5 to 7. If you've been to the winery, you've met me, I like the older vintages. I'll open up an older vintage if you're around and you ask me nicely, which simply means I love the older wines. These wines keep some of that fruit. It does turn some of that dark fruit, but the wine ages beautifully. So yeah, the problem is, Ron, it's delicious right now, which is what I said, a week. And then it will get better. The nuances and what makes the Mukaida so special do kind of come out a little more as the wine ages, I think, without a doubt. I think back in February, Charlie, one of our local guys, came up to the winery and we opened up an 04, which was the first vintage. My first time ever having the 04. You don't have much left, which was, holy cow. Amazing. And that's 16 years?
Yeah. So, a little story about Tom, how proud he was of the, Tom and...
Pop up a couple pictures of Tom while you tell the story.
Tom and Robin and Randy came to the winery, and the first year when we moved up to our new location. And so they brought Tom along, and I showed him a Magnum with empty Magnum with Mukaida Vineyard on it, and was going to. I just handed it to him, and we walked around and we tasted out of the barrel, and then it was time to leave. And I said to Tom, "I'll take that bottle, Tom." And Tom was a little hard of hearing, but he did a complete quarter turn away from me.
I think he
was a little guy that was half the size. This is a Magnum, half the size of Tom. So I thought about that for a moment. And then Robin says, "Hey, Pop, can we give Ben the bottle back?" And he did another quarter turn. And so it was pretty obvious that he was not giving that bottle up. He said, "Tom, believe me, I'm going to give you that bottle back to you with wine in it." It didn't make any difference. So he was so proud of that, his name on the label, that we said, "Okay, Tom." So Randy said when he passed away, that bottle was still on the mantle.
Oh, see, that's awesome. Here's a picture of Tom and Randy.
You see Tom there. Tom drove that truck every year to us until he was in his 90s, and then his grandson drove the truck. But Tom came along with him every time. And then the joke was that Tom, because it was a pretty long ride from south of Sebastopol to our location, that Tom would nap on the way up. But he was so he was so interested in seeing the delivery and how happy we were to get the fruit, that it was a joy. And you could just tell he was into it. He loved it. And there he's sitting in a old World War II Jeep that he used to drive around his property. We still use that when we go out and do the walk through the vineyard. We get to the vineyard in that old Jeep.
That is awesome. Well, a couple of things with Tom. So Tom was born in Maui, right? But he grew up. Yeah, but he grew up in Sebastopol, and if I'm correct, let's see, he lived on a ranch as a small child, and he always wanted land to farm. So he had some land and grew apples. Not positive of this time frame, but I know in World War II, right? World War II, he was in an internment camp in Colorado for 3 years.
Moved him to his property and took the whole family and put him in a camp, which
3 years.
Painful, but true.
Yeah, long time. So when he left, he returned to the ranch and continued to work the ranch. And I believe that he worked at an apple cannery on the swing shift, worked the farm all day, then went to the apple cannery and worked that. But pretty incredible life.
Yeah, he bought little parcels of the property from different owners that put the I think it's 35 acres now, but. He didn't buy it all at one time. He worked and then he bought little pieces. And I think one of the guys, Fogg, the guy's last name was Fogg, was the last guy that sold him a piece of property. And that.
I think I remember Randy telling me, or Robin, Tom's daughter, telling me that when Randy was introducing grapes to be grown on the property instead of the apples, Tom was thrilled because the grape vintage to him was so much easier than the apple business.
Yeah.
And he had no problems really converting anything over. Ron's asking if there are any older vintages for purchase. Ron, shoot me an email. I can, don't tell Ben, don't tell Renee, shoot me an email. Let's see what I can do.
So Tom always kept some apples. There was still one section of apples on his property. And whenever I visited, or whenever Bruce, I, or Dave visited the property, he would always hand us a 3-pack of Martinelli sparkling apple juice.
That's cute. And then, wait a minute. Let me get this right. He gave you Martinelli's apple juice, and he got magnums of Mukaida in return.
Yes, but
so we got a winery with some apple juice.
We got it through.
You need a DNA test too. We need to know that you're a relative. I want to go back to that. This is actually the second time we have featured the Mukaida. Last month, and when all this craziness in the world shut down happened, Ben and I were doing Tuesdays in the cellar, meaning go in your cellar, grab a bottle of wine, and we picked out the 12 Mukaida. And again, this could be because I want to drink the Mukaida and I don't get to.
And now now the truth is coming out.
Totally, Kai. There's nothing in life is free. There's always an ulterior motive. Absolutely.
You know what? How seductive this is when you put your nose in here. It's just like, holy cow. This is I'm glad I have enough that I get to enjoy it a little more so than others, but it's a reward for building it, I guess.
Reward for a job well done. Good job, Ben. Wendy Nunes is asking, did you get the grapes in one big load like that with that truck picture? There were no Mac?
No, that truck we would get one block at a time, and sometimes we'd only get half the block at one time. Those grapes didn't come to us. That's not our grapes. Ours came to us all in in half-ton bins. That grapes was sold to Gallo. Like I said, Gallo helped plant the property, and if it wasn't for, I guess we were very fortunate to meet them before anybody else did. So our relationship with Randy is quite special because up until then, Randy was just growing for Gallo, and now he's one of the. In fact, the Wine Spectator in 2002 named 2 of the hottest new vineyards in California, Roar's Rosella Vineyard in Santa Lucia and Papapietro Perry's Peters Vineyard, Sebastopol, as the 2 hottest new vineyards in California. And so we help get recognition for Peters Vineyard, and that's helped our relationship all these years when others have wanted to mooch into our holdings with Randy, he's very, very considerate of our relationship. So God bless.
Wendy clarified she meant macro bins. Oh wait, yeah, macro bins. A little different than Mac Robbins. Okay, now I understand. I just figured it was an industry term you guys weren't sharing.
Macro bins are the half-ton bins that we get all our deliveries in.
I thought Mac Robin was a insider that you guys weren't explaining.
No, a burger of some kind.
Whatever you guys do. So one more thing, when you guys are doing your blendings, is there ever a big disagreement where you guys say that you guys just cannot agree on your blend? You leave the table in a huff. You throw down your glasses. You don't talk for a week.
No. And I make the final decision every year. And then we have Jim. Jim is our harvest chef, but he's also works in the tasting room.
This Jim?
And he's not sharing there. You can tell he's not into sharing right now. He's holding those very close to the vest.
He is. Sharing is not always caring.
So, but he has a really fantastic palate. So once we've done our blending, we usually ask him to come in and see what he thinks. And we use that as like, are we doing how well we're doing and consistent. So he always adds a great dynamic to our thing. But what we do is we make the wine in September, October, age it until spring. And then in spring, each one of the barrels has the vineyard and the clone separate. Then in spring, we take the component parts of each one of the vineyards and make the blend. And then once we've decided all the blends, then we do the racking, make the blends, put them back into the barrel, and then they age the rest of the time till August when we bottle them. So half the time is in their native state in the clone, and then in spring we make the blends. So it gives us an opportunity to let the wine develop before we make a decision on our blends on them. So it gives us an extra chance to do it right.
And this means that everything right now in barrel is in its completed form. So Mukaida right now for 2019 is in barrel. The blends, the Lamar is in barrel. They're all
that's what we were doing at the table. It was step one of two steps. One is deciding the blend, and then we do the racking. We set up the barrels and put them in a tank, make the blend, and then put them back in the barrel as a finished product, where they'll stay until August.
That's okay. So I'm going to be wrapping it up in a second. But Ben, what? I'm sorry. And I don't take so many days off.
Yeah,
hanging on the pool so much, you miss us. So you have the 18 Mukaida open. I think you're going to have to share it with people that are around you. But what are you having for dinner with it? Oh, you're already looking over your shoulder. They're waiting, aren't they?
Well, they are actually
with a glass.
Well, you said the grandkids are in the pool. So what we usually cook for them, and then today, because of my commitment here, we've decided to go to sweet tea or order sweet tea for delivery or pickup, and then we'll eat it at home. So we're looking for a barbecue, brisket, chicken, pork, and a bunch of sides with our Mukaida. And that it's going to go together. So, and it'll probably be one of many bottles or some bottles that will open along with that. But the kids are not getting another Mukaida.
Simone just wrote in, I'm on my way. Usually she's here at 4:30 with her, that's Ben's daughter. Usually there at 4:30 with her glass just a clinking, waiting to be filled. Sweet Tea, by the way, is a local restaurant here in Windsor. They lost their location in the Tubbs fire back in 2017, and they were in Fountain Grove. We are thrilled, beyond thrilled. They are down the street from both of us.
Yeah, I can walk there.
You could. Are you going to?
Probably not. I'm not leaving the house. It's like a fortress here. I've got armed guards. I'm not leaving anywhere.
Just thought I'd ask. I'm cooking at home. It's just me. My kids are at dad, so I'm by myself. I'm not nearly as exciting as you. I do have a whole bottle of wine to drink, but no, I'm kidding. Well, I'm not. Anyways.
You got your mag. I'm watching you.
I'm turning this off, show. I got a whole magnum over here. Thank you, Heather. No, I'm kidding. Speaking of food, next week we are beyond, well, speaking of food and restaurants, we're beyond thrilled to welcome Dustin Villette from Villette Restaurant, which is a phenomenal restaurant over in Healdsburg.
We're so fortunate to have his restaurant in Healdsburg.
Yeah. Oh, no, he does a great job. He loves our wine. He's amazing with pairings.
For many years, our Christmas party was at Dry Creek Kitchen while Dustin was the chef there, and he was always very generous.
He's very generous. Yeah, we're super excited to be able to pick his brain onto him when he drinks wine, where his brain goes with the food. And then Ben is also a chef. So, you know, Ben, with your wine and food pairings and what you think, I may have to do a chef thing for you guys. And then maybe I could just eat both and judge it. That's my idea.
Sounds
I'll
like
drive to both places. Oh, yeah, Ron ate at Villette with Eric Flanagan. Awesome. Yeah, Ron, it's a delicious restaurant. Wendy Nunes, it's her favorite. Wendy, what am I making? Reservations, leftovers? I don't know. I was talked about maybe a Cajun shrimp Caesar salad, but
grilled cheese sandwiches and what do you call it?
You know what I just discovered? Lemon olive oil on grilled veggies is amazing. That's my new thing. Anyways, cheers to everybody. Thank you. Hey, thanks, Ben. It was nice having you back. You look so tan.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to drink my bottle of wine. You guys enjoy your evening. I'll catch up with you later. Bye, everybody. See you guys on Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us. See you next week.